All right. I'm hoping that all the sound is working today. I've been having issues with Zoom and sound, so I'm hoping we don't today. But if I do, wave at me, do something, get my attention. First thing I want to do is, again, fair housing. If depending on who you are, or where you're working, or whatever, depending on what you read and don't read, fair housing is becoming a bigger and bigger issue. Currently, there are a number of appraisers actually that have complaints filed against them. So it's not just us or realtors and such, although as I sit on the board for the Michigan Association of Realtors and the Fair Housing Committee, we do review a variety of complaints. And so we can't hide. We can't think that it's not happening, because sadly enough, it is still happening. What I want to do is I want to share a video I got off of the NAR website next year.
As we commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Fair Housing Act, let us rededicate ourselves to assuring that the promises of the Act are reality, and that the promise is extended to groups not fully protected from discrimination. To achieve that goal, we must take action to oppose and challenge discrimination when it occurs, and advocate for specific language in the Act to protect the LGBTQ community from housing discrimination. We must also focus on educating how equal opportunity in housing is directly connected to health, education, and economic opportunity.
You know, our zip code is our destiny. The zip code that you grow up in is going to determine how high you're going to climb the social ladder and the economic ladder in our country. If we don't have quality schools within a neighborhood, if we don't have a chance for social advancement within a neighborhood, then the homes that people invest in within those neighborhoods are not going to increase in value and not allow them to leave a legacy for the next generation.
Discriminatory housing practices create racial and economic segregation in communities. That can lead to disparate outcomes in overall quality of life. Fair housing supports developing racially and economically diverse communities and expands access to greater life opportunities. Each of us has a role to play. What can you do? Redouble your efforts to understand fair housing laws and how your actions, words, and understanding of the issues impact housing choice.
It's important to take action to oppose discrimination so it doesn't continue years to come, generations to come. And there's many ways to do it, and we should be all made aware on the steps to take when we do face discrimination and how to take action.
When you see discrimination, challenge it, report it. Engage in community dialogue and debate about the issues tied to housing choices, like schools, healthy communities, gentrification, and economic opportunity. Be informed and take action to expand protections to new groups experiencing discrimination today.
We know that we have half the population living in states that have protections for people who identify themselves as LGBTQ or gender identity, but it's only half the states. It's imperative that we come together as a country, that there are protections in place for everyone, whether you're Black, white, Asian, a millennial, it does not matter. Everyone should have the same rights in terms of being able to own a home or being able to rent a home.
As realtors, we don't just sell homes, we sell communities. And the reality is that everything that we do really ties into the overall economic vitality and viability of a given neighborhood. And we as realtors play an important part. Home ownership, I mean, it's the cornerstone of our society.
There's obviously still work to do. Call on members of Congress to change the Fair Housing Act to prohibit discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. By protecting the rights to housing, free from discrimination for all people, the Fair Housing Act preserves and advances opportunities for everyone. It's time for all realtors to take ownership of fair housing rights, to challenge discrimination, and ensure the promise of the Fair Housing Act.
Fair housing.
Fair housing.
Fair housing makes us stronger.
It was just a few years ago, 3 years ago exactly, that we just celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Fair Housing Act that was brought into being by President Johnson just days after Martin Luther King was his life was taken. And like I say, we can't pretend it's not happening, because it still is. Another quick video. This is more of an ad that you can get from NAR. My point in showing or sharing this is simply there's all types of resources that are free to you. Yes, there are also some paid resources available, but if you're not tapping into NAR and the things that you get as a result of being a member of NAR, just want to make you aware there are a number of opportunities. So what I want to do first off is I want to ask some questions. And now there's simple questions, but let's see just what we do know. I got 5 questions I want to ask. Okay? So I believe that as a homeowner, I have the right to sell my own home, but a local broker told me I couldn't sell my home for my required price for the person I want. Is that true? Sounds pretty easy, right? I mean, it's straightforward. Key point that I want to make here is that if they're going to utilize any type of real estate broker forms, seller disclosures, lead-based paint, whatever, and they're refusing to sell or rent based on race, color, religion, sex, familiar set, all that, may have a problem. It's because first off, a seller or an owner who discriminates on those bases is in direct violation of the law. No ifs but ors. So actions to take: inform the seller that there can be no discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, or national origin in the sale or rental of the property. So the way the suggested, and again, this is from NAR, you have the absolute right to sell your home to anyone at your required price as long as you don't discriminate. What amazes me, I guess, is that sometimes we are confronted with those issues, but we're not sure what the answer is. The reality is we have a responsibility, despite what our own personal beliefs are, despite what our own thoughts are, we have to be very careful that we don't use that when responding to a seller or a buyer. Pretty simple question, right? All right. Could you tell me who you're showing my house to? What's your first answer? What's your first thought? Well, absolutely. Or why are you even asking that question? By law, all people have the right. Sellers have the right to know who's coming. But if they were to say, well, I don't want them to come. In fact, it may not have happened to you, but it has happened to me, where I had a seller that wanted to screen the names of everyone coming because she anticipated there were some nosy people that would come see her home just to get into her business. And I tried to explain to her, I can tell you who's coming, but you have to be very, very careful that if one of those so-called people were to come to your home or desire to come to your home, you have to be careful why you're saying you don't want them to come into your home, because I don't want you to violate or be against, breaking the law. Fortunately, didn't happen. Area liability: a seller who wants to screen home buyers may be intending to discriminate. And again, we cannot interpret. All we can do is we can ask questions. And I think it's upon us to ask those questions, not only to protect ourselves, but also to protect that potential buyer or that potential seller from discrimination. I'll be showing your home to, and use the name who's coming. And if the seller responds with concern about the national origin, religion, or whatever the case may be, once again, remove yourself from that conversation, because you do not want to get in the middle of any type of issues as it relates to fair housing. And we can fall victim to it way too easily, way too quickly. Question number 3. This one we get asked quite a bit, right? Are these home buyers really qualified? Again, it's a legitimate question, but what is the basis for it behind? Once again, what amazes me is as realtors and we're presenting offers, we tend to give less importance, or we play down those FHA mortgages, or we play down those MISHDA loans, or we play down the VA mortgage. If I have a choice between conventional, and even though that conventional offer might be a little bit less than the FHA or the VA, we say, well, you know what? This buyer is better qualified. That's why they're getting a conventional. I understand it's a little bit less, but you know what? We'll be able to close quicker. Are you sure you should be saying that? Think about it. When you are giving guidance, be sure that the guidance you give isn't based on anything based on religion. Again, it talks about protected classes. It talks about poor credit risk. It talks about stereotyping. And again, when you start to downplay the fact that an FHA mortgage is not the same or not as qualified as a conventional, you're at risk. I want you to know that. And the fact that people would even, I understand some of you have been in the business forever when points used to be an issue, and people didn't like to do VA because the seller is going to have to pay this, and this. Well, the reality is there's been a number of changes to the VA mortgage. One, for instance, we talk about pest inspections. If there's no 1% origination fee on the mortgage and the buyer can actually pay for the pest inspection, that's not automatically on the seller anymore. But most importantly, why would we be denying those that were willing to literally give their life? All because we consider them to be a credit risk when in reality they're not. And the same goes true for rural development, the USDA mortgage. Be careful how you present your offers when you get them. Now let's go with a couple of buyer questions. Oh, I forgot I got to finish that. Area of liability, any inappropriate conduct or comment by you could lead the seller to apply those discriminatory qualifications. And I will guarantee you, folks, because it happens each and every time that someone feels as though they've been discriminated against, they don't just go after the seller, they're going to identify you as the agent. Actions to take, be extremely sensitive. Again, I cannot overstress the importance of presenting all offers in all fairness across the board. We all have that saying, well, cash is king. Is it? Be careful that you do not tread upon any of those. Don't put yourself in the circumstances where you have to defend yourself, possibly lose your license or go to jail. Suggested response: it is my responsibility as a sales associate to present you the offers of all home buyers interested in your property. Based on what Mr. and Mrs. Lewis have told me and what I've been able to confirm, I believe the Lewises have the financial resources. Again, this is all due diligence on us, folks. If you get multiple offers on a home, it's not just a case of the money and everything else. It's what about the inspections? What about all of it entails? But present them with an unbiased so that they can make a qualified decision, but not be making a decision based on discrimination. Get asked this all the time. Are there high quality schools in the area? Well, one of the advantages of Michigan is we do have the right to school of choice. But then again, if you're in a rural area, that school of choice can be far-fetched and few, in addition to the fact that you have to provide the transportation. But anyways, many of the suits filed in cases that have gone to trial, which allege racial steering, involve comments by sales associates about schools. This is probably one of the biggest areas that come into play. one of the biggest. And notice that it says professional testers. If you didn't know, yes, there are testers in the field. And if you didn't know, if you ask someone if they're a tester, because you might just have that gut feeling just because of the questions they're asking and such, or the statements they may be making, they're not required to tell you that they're a tester. So you may want to know that. If you ever make, and I've done, I have to confess, I've done this myself. I put into a listing description saying, you know, Grand Blanc schools, desired schools. You know what? I was wrong. And I had to be corrected. Don't make the same mistake that I did, okay? Don't discern between schools. What you need to do is, again, you can direct them to a variety of different websites. You can direct them to a number of different ways of finding out the information. And of course, the best way, simply tell them to contact the school. If they really have a question, the school's going to tell them where they rate. You know, if they're a number 10 school or a number 5 school or whatever, they're going to share that with them because it's public knowledge. So it's one of the easiest ways. But don't put yourself in a position where you're providing the answers. This is kind of one of those, you know, where I'm not an attorney, so I can't. Well, don't do it. One more question. Would you live here? Not me, brother. Ain't no way. No. Be careful how you answer it, because yes, you want to be honest. But why are they even asking you that? If they're asking you that question, there's got to be a basis for it, don't you think? Would you live here? Again, I live on the skirts of Flint. Would I live in the inner city of Flint? There's a number of places I'd love in the city of Flint. But the truth is, most of those homes in Flint are not big enough for my family.
I'm just spoiling your hair,
Which
right?
is a plus or a minus. I guess it all depends on how you look at it. Some people get to downsize as they get older. Because my family got so large, I had to upsize just so we could get them in the house. Another story altogether. I'm sorry. I digress. Now, again, if you suggest anything about based on race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, you're in violation. Be honest. Give them your opinion. Be careful what you say, that you don't discriminate. We all take this so many of us, we just simply take this for granted and believe it couldn't happen to me. It couldn't happen to us. Well, it can, and it might, and it will. And I'd hate to see any of us ever in a position where we had to defend ourselves. So yes, I would. Again, area is well maintained, a particular house is nicely located. If you're showing the home, I mean, I realize that some of us, we don't want anything to do with different areas. Then I guess that now you're starting to racially profile based on where you want to show people homes. Do you really want to do that? One of the biggest things that I see people use core listing machine, they set a price range that they only want homes within a specified price range. Do you realize that you're in violation of the Fair Housing Act? You can't say that you won't involve yourself in homes less than $100,000 or $50,000 is your limit. If you have those limitations set on your core listing machine setup, you're in violation of the Fair Housing Act because you cannot pick a price point range. Just like you might like to know that. So, creative advertisements with fair housing. This is probably one of the biggest things. Whether you're doing it by postcard, whether you're doing it by like those little videos I just showed, you're doing it by talkies, whatever you're doing. Okay. There's some things that you want to, this is probably one of the biggest things that I want to get to is when you're making the description of the home, focus on the property and its amenities. Don't fixate yourself on this is a great first time home buyer's home. Don't fixate on this is a great family home. Again, you're discriminating based on familial status. You may not think so, but you are. Don't make statements that have the effect of excluding individuals. There it is, folks. You say it's a great family home. What if I'm a single person, but I just like big houses? You're separating me out. Things that we don't really stop to think about. Sometimes we just say it. And then afterwards we think about it. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but it's too late because it's already out there. So be familiar with what the applicable local and state fair housing protections are in your area. Again, thinking about disabilities, talking about assistant animals, things such as that is far more common today, and they're a protected class and they have rights that need to be protected. NAR is a great place to go to get. If you have a question, you can, if you can call the legal hotline and you can ask, boom, and get the answer, or you can go research it yourself.
Marissa's.
Oh my God, that's the same one I wore to your.
I know, I asked you if it was from Marissa's.
No.
Can you, Rachel, mute yourself?
Oh.
All right. 67 words to exclude from listings. This is actually taken right from RealComp. Words that you can't use: able body, adult living, adult community, adults only, African, no impaired, independent living. Did you know independent living was a no-no? You can't use that. Did you know that newlyweds, you can't do that? These are words to avoid, folks. One more page. Here's the rest of those words. Board approved required. Again, this is common in a like housing association or something like that. Don't want to go there. Don't want to do it. Must be employed. Really? They're not the ones that get to decide that, are they? No mentally handicapped. Shoot, I've been told I've been handicapped mentally for years. We'll just let that one ride. No smokers. Did you know that? Even though so much has changed in the way that, there's no smoking in restaurants and all the other types of things, you still can't say if you were to rent a place, no smokers. You can't put it out there. Interesting, huh? Little did we know. There's a lot dealing with how we advertise. Okay. It's in the slides, but it's way too much to try to convey all of it. Again, dealing with adult, dealing with deaf, our deaf people, restricted community, blind, mature persons, retarded, singles building. Folks, again, if you ever have a doubt or a question, all I can encourage you to do is to get better educated. In fact, I try to do this in like 30 minutes, right? It would take actually a couple hours if we were to try to just cover what our obligations are with advertising alone. That's just how big it really is. And the reality is just like any other law, the reason they exist is because somebody did it. But I want to get to the end here because I want, this right here. How many of you have ever had a buyer write a letter? Or how many of you have been the listing agent and received a letter from a buyer or pictures or whatever. Consider carefully, because those letters, are they really a liability? Or think about it. I myself, I've gotten letters from time to time. I've even encouraged. In fact, I even remember a lender telling me to write a letter. But you know what? Now, understand and realize we live in a legalistic society today. So be absolutely careful. Be certain 100% that if you should do that, if you receive it or if you encourage it, be sure. Again, it says avoid reading any love letter drafted or received by your client. If you don't read it, you can't offer an opinion, right? Document all offers and the seller's objective reason for accepting an offer. CYA.
It has been more than 50 years since America passed the Fair Housing Act, but we have far more work to do to eliminate discrimination in real estate. Welcome to Fairhaven, a new fair housing learning experience from NAR. Fairhaven simulated scenarios will challenge you to confront bias in yourself, in clients, and in other real estate professionals. After your trip to Fairhaven, you'll see the world differently, and you'll be better prepared to tackle discrimination in real estate. Fairhaven, the next stop on your fair housing journey.
I would like to encourage each and every one of you to take the time to go to fairhaven.realtor to take this test. I can guarantee and assure you that you will learn something about your own biases, or you will learn about things that you didn't conceive to be a violation, when in truth, it actually is. Fairhaven.realtor is, again, while they are tracking who's completed it, they're not tracking, it's not like they're going to come down on you because you answered all the questions wrong. In fact, when you answer a question wrong, what happens is it gives you guidance of what the correct answer would be and gives you an opportunity to change it. So ultimately, you get all the answers correct, even though you may not the first time through. And it's kind of cool because it's based on a fictional town. It's got real issues, real life situations. It, depending on how quickly or slowly you work, it might take you 15 minutes. It could take you an hour and a half. I mean, it just depends on how long it takes you to work you through. But can I tell you that I just visit Fairhaven today. I mean, I cannot tell you the number of cases that we review at the state level each and every year, and the number of people that are discriminated against, and then the actions that are taken against those that are doing the discrimination. Fairhaven.realtor. Please visit it. And I happen to finish right on the 12:30 mark. How's that? I hope you got something. This is not one of those where you notice I wasn't all hyped and jumping all over the place. This is too serious an issue. And this is an issue that, just as we have the privilege of working with people of all different types, all over the place, to help satisfy our whys. You understand that by satisfying your whys, that you're also helping other people with their whys and their dreams. And that's one of the greatest things about being a realtor, is being able to help people to achieve their dreams. In reality, each and every one of you is a dream maker, because you help make dreams happen. Visit Fairhaven. Any questions? right, folks. Until next time, thank you for participating. Visit fairhaven.realtor, please. We'll see you next time.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.